The locks on the window. You don't think it'd make that big of a difference, but it does. I'll explain why.
Desert King Windows, we knock out the weather.
All right, I got a couple of different locks here. Actually, I have several different locks here, and they're all a little bit different, but they all can make a big difference. So let me show you each one of these here. Obviously, lots of different manufacturers out there. There's lots of different locks out there, lots of different hardware. And I got the main ones to show you and what the differences are. And they can make a pretty big difference when it comes to your windows, whether it's security, whether it's air infiltration. And I'll show you how. These are the most common ones. The most common one that you're gonna see is what's called a 90-degree knife lock, okay? And that is this one right here, all right? So that's 90 degrees, that's all it is. It sticks right in between the two sashes, preventing it from being able to be opened. That works really well. While we're here, I also wanna point out this right here. This is called the interlock. The interlock, basically that, when you shut a window, it goes into the other side. That right there is a great feature to have on windows, and you have to make sure that whatever window you choose has that. Because if it's just shutting like this, it's much easier to jimmy open, much easier to get through that window. So you have to make sure that there is an interlock there. That's gonna come up later. So you have these 90-degree ones. So the interlock still works, that still happens, but something just prevents it it blocks it from being open, basically. Very, very simple. All right, now let me show you the best version, and then I'll fill in the gaps between. So the best version is what's going to be right here. So this is from Anlin. This is what's called a 180-degree cam lock. The difference between this one and that one is, first off, the degrees. So 90 degrees, 180 degrees. Why does that matter? 180 degrees all the way up and down. I'll show you what happens here. 180 degrees means that this goes through there. So you have the interlock, right? Shuts together. This right here closes all the way around, and notice that it's tapered. You see how that's tapered like that? What it's doing when it shuts around that interlock and locks is simple. They shut like this. Now the 180 degrees squeezes it tighter. So remember when I talked about air infiltration or how a breeze can get through a window? That is going to counteract that a heck of a lot better than a 90-degree knife lock. Be careful, because there are some posers out there. This one will operate like a 180-degree cam lock, right? But if you look at what it's actually doing, it's only a 90-degree cam lock. So careful, 180 degrees, but only 90 degrees of actual action. Notice on this one too, while we're here, this interlock, there's a stop right there. Why is there a stop right there? Doesn't that hurt the seal of my window? Yes, it does. It does hurt the seal of the window just a little bit, okay? You can get some dust that comes through there. Why does this manufacturer do that? Well, because they have another lock as an option that is called an auto lock. These are extremely common in replacement windows, is auto locks. Okay, so this is the auto lock. Now what you see here is you do see that steel right there, grab and hold the other side, right, for the interlock. But then with an auto lock, it's plastic, right? How is that gonna keep anybody out, right? And that's what most auto locks are. Also notice that it doesn't do the 180-degree grab a hold of the other side and squeeze it tight. It doesn't do that. So these auto locks, they're nice because, well, they're functional. They're easier to operate. You know, your windows are gonna automatically lock, right? Makes sense. So that happens. But at the end of the day, it's not helping you out with your seal, and it's also less secure than a 180-degree cam lock. Another thing I want to point out, back to the interlock, what's in there? You know, because this is a vinyl frame window. Vinyl is not as strong as steel, way more energy efficient, but not as strong as steel. So if you don't have any reinforcements in there, it's just being screwed into vinyl. So that can be jimmied open a lot easier than if there's some reinforcement. All of these manufacturers that we carry do have at least some sort of reinforcement in there. It's either going to be steel, or even better, a higher grade, is going to be fiberglass. So let me show you. So you have steel right there, good and secure, but just not energy efficient. Now this isn't a window, this is a door, but same concept. This right here with Anlin, if you're a Gold Star dealer of theirs, if you have the ability to sell the Del Mar like we do, that would be fiberglass, and that comes standard with the Del Mar window. Fiberglass, just almost as strong, way more energy efficient. So the thermal rating on this and the security and with the 180-degree cam lock, much better all the way around. Much more energy efficient, much more secure, all of that good stuff. And that's all just because of the locking system on there. So big differences between this and the knife lock, especially if you don't have a nice interlock. Always preaching, make sure that you actually get to see the window that you're purchasing. Don't buy off just a brochure. Guy comes in, shows you a brochure, gives you a price, sounds good. No, 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 no. You have to see the actual window. You have to see cutout. You have to be able to take out the sash so you can see what you're buying. I mean, you wouldn't buy a car without test driving it, right? No different for this. Windows aren't cheap. It's very important that you make a very good informed decision. You can also weed out a lot of the companies, as you're getting bids and quotes, you can also weed out a lot of the companies that don't show you the sample because, well, there could be a problem there. That's a red flag. Not saying that means they're bad. You don't know for sure. Hope this was a good video for you, and hope you learned a lot about locks.
We use the best windows, cause nothing works better. Desert King Windows, we knock out the weather.